welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a quick September wrap up. So going over the books that I read this month. If you're interested in that, keep on watching. The first book that I read this month, or finished this month, was Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman. So I absolutely hated the first one, but I had already gotten the second one from my library. So I decided, hey, I'm gonna read it, give this series a fair shot before I decide hate it or love it. So I did read the second one. I actually like this one a lot better than the first one. The first one I believe I gave like 1 star. This one I gave about like 3 stars. I enjoyed the premise. I like that they went I like that he went deeper into the characters. This story takes place shortly after the first one. So Citra is now a scythe, and she's Scythe Anastasia, and she is still under Madame Curie, and she is trying to figure out how to be a scythe in a old world type of way, versus Rowan. He didn't make it, he's not a scythe, but he decided that it is his personal journey to take out the Siths of the New Order because he believes that they're not like ethical. So one of the things that I really enjoyed about this book was the political intrigue. I thought it was a lot more interesting. They stepped it up and hypened it up a little bit more, because you really got an understanding of like the New Order and the Old Order and how they're really fighting on like their beliefs about how they should kill, or the proper word in the book is glean people. So I really enjoyed that aspect. I thought it actually paralleled our current political environment really well. So in that sense, I really enjoyed it. It made a lot of sense, and I could really feel that there was a deep riff in between both of the parties. So I really enjoyed that aspect. And I have to give Neil Shusterman credit where his credit is due, because the ending to this book was wild. And when I say wild, I mean like I was not expecting that. I wasn't expecting it was like a plot twist, and it just so much happened in those last few chapters. I will say that I felt like the beginning half of the book dragged on. I was like, okay, great, where are we going? But the last half, I felt like I actually would have liked more pages there, because so much happened that I had to slow down and read because I thought I was going to miss some details. So overall, I gave it 3 stars, and the reason I gave it 3 stars was because the ending was amazing. Other than that, I would have gave it like a 2, because I didn't think the rest of the book was that good, but the ending was amazing. So I don't know if I'm gonna read the third one, to be honest with you. I don't know if it's my vibe or my tea, so we'll see. But I don't know how I feel about this series. The jury's still out. Like, I hated the first one. This one was okay. I just don't know if I want to continue wasting my time reading this series when like they're thick books and I'm not in love with them, The second book that I read this month was Cia Martinez and the Moonlit Beginning of Everything. This book follows Cia Martinez. Her mother was just recently deported, and she lives in this small town in Arizona with her dad. And it takes place shortly after her mother was deported, and it kind of goes into detail about what that struggle was like for her, as well as kind of like life after her mother was deported. And there's a beautiful sci-fi twist that I really enjoyed, which was one of the days she is out in the desert, trying to that's where she feels most at home, and she's there, and then there's a alien spaceship that crashes, and it turns out that her mom is actually in the spacecraft. And so it brings out this like kind of like alien invasion type thing, and the idea is that the US government was doing medical tests on undocumented people, so they would capture them when they were trying to cross the border and doing forced medical tests on them with alien blood. And then her mom escapes, and then she comes in search of her daughter, and that's kind of where the drama of the story happens. I will say that I didn't read the synopsis of this book, so when I was reading it, I just thought it was a regular YA contemporary with a little bit of a YA romance, because I will say that the first half of the book was really just a regular YA contemporary, so I didn't know that it was going to have this twist, and I didn't think that it was going to be like that hell of a twist. So I really do wish that the author had started this scene with her mom earlier, because I think it could have gone in some really cool directions instead of just like, hey, this happened. Yeah, like her mom is infused with alien blood, so now she has like special powers, and we only have like a few more chapters in the book left. What's gonna happen? You know, I kind of wish it was a little bit more gone into in depth overall, but I like the idea. I like the concept. I also think that I like how the author tackled a lot of issues in this book about like racism, with how her mom was deported, as well as colorism within both the Latinx community, and within like how that plays into racism, as well as and one of the things that I enjoyed in this book was how the author did take a little bit of time to talk about the experiences of Black and brown folks within, you know, rural America, and how, you know, some people experience racism and colorism and what that looks like, and also xenophobia. One of the characters, he's like a side character, he is from Middle Eastern descent, and then they really do highlight the struggles that he faces in regards to discrimination. Same thing with her best friend who's from Haiti, and she's from Mexico. So it kind of talks about how a lot of minorities have a similar experience in regards to racism or discrimination, but like that experience is similar, but how it manifests and what it looks like is very unique to that particular group of people, and also like just people within those groups. So I thought that was really interesting. I like that concept. I like that they kind of brought that up. I wish it was brought a little bit more to the forefront, because it seemed like it was just kind of like an afterthought, like, oh, and these other groups face discrimination too. But overall, I thought it was really well done. I thought the story was fun. I like the alien element. I thought it was a great touch. I do just wish it was a little bit faster paced. So I gave it like a 3.5 stars, because I wish it was faster paced, and I wish that I went into a little bit more detail about like her mom being an alien now and like what's gonna happen. But I'm hoping that the author releases a second book and goes a little bit more in depth about that process. So I'm excited for that book. Hopefully it comes out. The third book that I read this month was History Is All You Left Me. This book features Theo and Griffin. They're best friends from middle school, and they grow up together, and in high school they discover that they have a crush on each other, and they start dating, and they're together for a few years before Theo, he gets into college a whole year earlier than Griffin, and so he decides to go off to California to pursue a degree. I believe it was like in film or something like that, and so the couple breaks up, and then Theo starts dating another partner, and Theo dies, and so it kind of takes place through Griffin's eyes about his memories with Theo and the good times that he had, but then also where he's at now in the grieving process. So it uses flashbacks a lot, comparing life with Theo and then after Theo, which I feel like is a really well done, specifically when we're talking about grief. I feel like with grief, it's very common to kind of see life as like a before and after, because it's a very distinct traumatic event, especially when you lose someone that you really love. So I feel like the flashbacks were a really great use. I will say that Griffin is messy. He is a messy Bessie. Like, he is doing a lot of stuff with a lot of people. But I will say, and that's not a judgment at all. He's just, he's all over the place with his emotions, which I feel like is very realistic. He definitely looks for comfort in the wrong places, which again is very realistic. So I thought that the author's representation of grief was really well done, while also showing that when we are grieving, sometimes we do things that are not characteristic for ourselves, because we're trying to find those release or trying to the sadness that we're feeling. And so I do really enjoy that. I thought it was really well done that in that aspect. I will say that I was disappointed. It's a long book and I felt like it was unnecessarily long. After a while it just kind of got like repetitive, like, okay, I know that he's grieving and I know that this is a difficult process, but is there going to be other things that will happen in this book, or is it just that? So I did feel like it was a little bit too long, and that not enough happened. So it was a little boring in that way, as well as I thought it was a missed opportunity. The author usually in his other books, he focuses like LGBTQ characters, as well as they are Latinx. So in this book they were both white, and I didn't know that. I thought, in his regular fashion, the main character would be Latino. So I didn't love that because I just had a different conception about who the characters were. So I didn't really enjoy that. And I thought the book was okay. I appreciate it for what it is, but it's just not my favorite of his. So I gave it, I think, 3 stars. It was okay. The next book that I read this month was Fiora, and I'm not going to go into depth in this. I have a whole reading blog about it. So I did really enjoy it. I loved it. I thought it was amazing. So moving on. The last book that I read this month was Cemetery Boys, and this book is absolutely amazing. Look at this cover. So stunning, right? But it's absolutely amazing because it is a trans Latinx fantasy book. Like, this is giving me everything that I've ever wanted in a book. And I thought it was fun. It was so fast paced. This book is about Idel. He is trans, and his dream is becoming a bruja, which means witch in Spanish, and so, or sorcerer. And so he wants to become part of he wants to practice brujeria. He wants to be accepted into the community of brujos. And so but the community is very traditional in the sense where they do not recognize him as trans, and they will only allow him to do the rites, the special ceremony, as a woman. And so he is totally against that. He recognizes that he's a brujo. He wants to be seen as a boy, or like as a man. And so he is on a mission to find his cousin who is missing. So he goes to the cemetery and tries to enlist a spirit to help him find his cousin. And it turns out he is a brujo. He can summon a spirit, but he summons the resident bad boy at his school, Julian, and they go on a journey to not only help Julian's spirit rest, but also to find what happened to Yadel's cousin. And so this was such a beautiful story. I loved that they talked about a lot of Dia de los Muertos. I thought that's a wonderful way to weave in the story of brujeria and Dia de los Muertos, because I feel like Dia de los Muertos is overall a very magical time, and it's like such a great way to weave in fantasy elements. And so I thought that was just beautiful and ingenious, and I loved it. I also like that the author talked a lot about LGBTQ issues, specifically when it came to Julian and Julian's friends, about how they experienced homelessness and being kicked out of their families' homes, and kind of creating their own chosen family, which I thought is just a really beautiful way of bringing in some of the issues that the LGBTQ community faces, while also giving light to Yadel, and how even though he is trans and his family is struggling with it, that they still love him and support him and haven't kicked him out. So kind of showing that idea that, some parents might not be tolerable, and some kids experience having to choose their own families and having to kind of make it on their own, whereas some parents are also more progressive and are trying to work on it. And I think it shows a growth in thinking and a growth in trying to become more accepting and tolerant and loving of your child. And overall, I thought that's what this story highlighted really well, is that that idea of tolerance and love, and that you can accept someone as being trans, and that just because it's an old belief doesn't mean that it has to still be present. And just seeing the dad's journey in that, I thought was really beautiful. So I love this one. I give it 5 stars. I also listened to the audiobook, and the audiobook at the end they have an interview with the author, and the author was saying that the person who made the book cover was trans, and then the audiobook reader is also trans, and so that was a really big priority for them, and I thought that that was absolutely amazing. So those are all the books that I read in September. I've been going through a bit of a reading slump, but I'm glad that I got to read a few books this month, and I'm excited for what next month has to offer. So thank you so much, and have a great day. Bye guys.